I got a scholarship from Strive Masiwa, which was very essential, which then afforded me an opportunity to go to the UZ. You were almost like a salaried student, would get an allowance for the whole semester. By then, the MDC was in government, so there was money in the ATMs.
I like that. Okay. If it wasn't for Strive Masiwa, we wouldn't have, this intelligent young man who is the future of Zimbabwean politics.
This Strive Masiwa guy is an agent of capital, exploiting people, his school of thought. And then with a lot of exchange, Tsitsi Masiwa trying to make us understand, because I came from the left. Strive Masiwa and business people and capitalists are on the right, so we wouldn't agree. Capital is good in making profit and very bad in redistributing profit, which is our ideological difference. And that was my really belief, and they were able to convince me. In my respectful view, Strive has done well in terms of redistributing wealth and ensuring that they understand that Econet became a big company because of the efforts of the ordinary people.
Right. And then, so what year was that when you finally became SRC president?
I then contested in 2014.
How did you then end up being a cadre for the Triple C? Because I know you're a founder member of Tajamuka.
There's what is called the democratic contingent, the democratic family, the broad democratic movement. So it has got the party, it has got the progressive civic society, the progressive church, the progressive students union. All these formed what was called the democratic movement. Yep. So you are active in the students union, but you are connected to the broader family. So when we left the UZ, we started a movement called Discount, demonstrating against unemployment, and then eventually formed Tajamuka, and then occupied the street, got arrested, stayed in prison, and then we came out. And then from there, I then now left the civic society to go directly into the party to be the Secretary General.
Let's first of all talk about Sengezo Shabangu, right? Who is he and how has he managed to take over your party?
You ought to understand these facts. The first thing is that Sengezo Shabangu never took over anything. Sengezo Shabangu is a pawn, is a tortoise on a lamppost. Our fight to this very day is a fight between ourselves, the progressive citizens who believe that there must be change in this country. And you must understand how these regimes operate. It's not a Zimbabwean script. It's a fascist script world over. I was in Cameroon a few weeks ago. When you get there, you hear political activists saying their story. You think these are people from Zimbabwe. You think this is an opposition movement in Zimbabwe. Saying, no, our press conference has been banned. In fact, we are no longer allowed, this one and this one is not allowed to contest. Because the script, the detector's manual, world over is the same. The objective of a dictatorship is to have an opposition that they control. So our first crime is that we believed, and we still believe, that there can be an authentic opposition. Being authentic means that you don't do night deals with the regime. Before an election, ZANU-PF then comes, what do we do? Because remember that there are polls that are done before the election. You go to an election with almost an understanding. You have knowledge. We knew before the election, these are the likely numbers of votes that President Chamisa is going to get. These are the likely numbers of members of parliament that were likely going to get. There are surveys that are done. So they knew that there's going to be a problem, particularly in parliament. And the agenda now, by those who coordinated it, Kubani Moyo and others, was that we then have to have a plan of the night after. ZANU-PF had a quantitative majority. They had more numbers than us. They didn't have 2/3 to pass the law, which was the first problem that they had. But they didn't have the qualitative majority. We were the qualitative majority because we're top of the notch members of parliament. You had Honorable Fazai there, you had Honorable Agency there, you had Honorable Wende then there, you had Honorable Takuza Ngaziore there. So many very brilliant, organic young politicians. So we dominated parliament. So what that meant is that for the next 5 years, it was clear that we're going to be in charge of that parliament. Despite that, we had few numbers. So now the agenda was to say, how do we destabilize parliament? And then enter Chabangu. The first agenda to destabilize parliament did not happen post-election. It started before the election. So Chabangu goes to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and files papers on behalf of Triple C. These are my candidates. And they allow him clearly because they knew that if we have double candidates in the Triple C, one, people say, but these people are confused. Whereas we never had a double candidate anywhere in the country. Secondly, they knew that for some members of parliament and councillors who are not popular as individuals, the citizens might get confused because most people go to ballot to vote for the president and maybe for the MP. Councillors, they just look for the party. They might not even know the person, right? So, but now if there are two Triple Cs, you get confused. Either you spoil the ballot or you vote for the wrong one. But ZEC, traditionally, if you go to ZEC and say, I've got my party Triple C Z, or just say Triple C, they will tell you that already we have another party called Triple C, so you can't register. That's why when the MDC split, you couldn't go back and say we are MDC. They ended up calling it MDCT because ZEC said, no, there's already an MDC by Washman. So you guys, if you want to maintain MDC, it might be MDC something. That's why it MDC Mtambara, MDC Tsvangirai, as it were. But in this case, they allowed him because it benefited the regime, which mark the deeper challenge that we face in our country about institutions, their lack of credibility and independence and professionalism. We contested this in court. The court dismissed our case. We went to the election. We defeated the same people, came with more numbers in parliament. After the election, they go back to the same guy. Chabangu drafts a letter to the Speaker of Parliament. One of the most, funny thing about that letter, so many grammars, right? The first thing, the basis of the letter of why our members of parliament were removed, they were saying they've ceased to be members of the party. But even the word cease itself did not mean anything because of the way it was spelled. It meant something else, right? So on that basis, Mudenda was not supposed to act on the letter. Secondly, there was no clear proof that you have ceased to be a member of a party because there has to be procedure. You have been disciplined, you have joined another party and so forth. Thirdly, the person who was writing correspondence to Parliament was President Chamisa on behalf of the party. So he wrote and appointed all of us. I was appointed to go to the International Parliamentary Union. We had appointed the leader of the House and the chief whip and others. Parliament respected that correspondence. Now there's Sengezo. The guy is just coming from the dark. They say they respect his letter. President Chamisa writes to them and say, no. But this guy is not our member.